Okay, I'm joined by Lorenzo Zacchetti, an Italian journalist based in Italy, in Milan, one of the hardest affected regions in Europe during the coronavirus pandemic. I'd like to welcome you to FC Business Interviews.
Hi, it's nice to see you.
Excellent. So can you explain a little bit about the situation that Italy is currently facing now with the pandemic?
As you say, the situation is very difficult here. The country has been hit very hard. We are closing to 100,000 people tested positive with 30,000 people dead. And we expected only 1/3 when the virus was in the beginning. And most of that is happening here in Lombardy, my region, as we have over 77,000 people tested positive and about 15,000 people dead here, which is half of the total of the population in Italy. It is a sort of a nightmare, which has made our cities, especially Milan. It used to be, after Expo 2015, the place to be. Now it's the place to escape from. But today we are in the second day of the so-called phase 2. The lockdown was partially broken. For about 4.5 million people out of the 60 we are in Italy have restarted their work activities, and we are trying to move to the next phase. We must be very careful about it because all the protocols about testing, all the protocols about prevention are not quite clear. So we are trying to move because otherwise the economy would collapse totally. But we know that we must be very, very careful.
Yeah, and how's that impacted football in Italy and in Milan in general as well?
Well, the last match played, as you know, was the big match between Juventus and Inter, which was played behind closed doors. And it led to the discovery of Rugani, who was tested positive, and mostly Dybala, who has been as reported positive for 8 consecutive tests. And that's quite scary because he's totally without any symptoms. So if that is the situation, we can imagine that thousands of people without symptoms can be positive. That was the last match, and then it was suspended. And now the sports minister Spadafora is really under pressure for the Serie A to restart. He was in the first times completely against this option because he said there is no safety for the people, mostly for the players, I would say. But this very morning he said that he will do all he can in order for the league to restart. And we're talking only about the Serie A because it's not about the Serie B, it's not about the lower leagues, it's not about the amateur. That explains why the drive for this decision is purely economic. If the league doesn't restart, TV rights holder will charge the clubs for about 440 million euros, which that would make collapse the system, and many clubs would go bankrupt. We could maybe not have the next season. So this is a very, very crucial moment for the Italian football. They are making a decision, and possibly if the Serie A restarts, it will restart in probably the beginning of June. I'm not sure this would allow us to play the 12 match days and a half, that because some games were postponed, to end up the season, but they are trying to do so.
So how does Serie A balance this situation with the needs of getting the football back on, but in a safe manner?
Yes, this is the crucial thing because, of course, all matches would be played behind closed doors. But as you know, there's about 200, 300 people still working at a closed doors match. how can you guarantee their safety? I'm not sure about that. How can you guarantee the player safety? Because football is a contact sport. We have droplets from the mouth. We have maybe blood. We have sweat. How can you play in a safe situation? I heard that people in Germany suggested that the players would wear protective masks and change them every 15 minutes. But if you try to go walking for your shopping, I did yesterday, it was a very sunny day, it was very hard to breathe. I can't imagine professional players to do so. I'm personally very against this option. I think we better call off the league, even if we have to accept a huge economic damage, but you can't risk the life of the people.
Yeah, and if the league is voided, what kind of damage will that have on Serie A, and what clubs do you think could be mostly affected by that?
Well, I should say the unusual suspects, because also the biggest clubs, we think that they are strong financially, but it was proven they are not, because you know that a lot of big clubs like Roma and Napoli suspended their workers in this phase. As you know, Juventus managed to get a reduction of the wages of the players, and it was rumored that it was also for the balance of the club, which is public. So it's not an easy thing for the club to manage. And for instance, AC Milan, in my opinion, needs to look at their future with certainties. As I had the pleasure of writing for you an article about the new San Siro, right in these days, even if the Serie A is not playing, the two Milanese clubs restarted talks with the local administration in order for the new stadium to be built, which sounds quite strange, but as AC Milan is on the verge of changing property, if they get full access to a new stadium and the building rights for the huge area around in Italy's most valuable city on the building and real estate market, that will save the club. That will launch the club to a new dimension. If it doesn't happen, and if the league doesn't start, I see very dark days ahead for AC Milan.
And what do you think clubs need to do? Do you think this is a moment for Italian clubs to have a think about how they run their business and how they operate as businesses?
Yeah. Well, the people say that every crisis is an opportunity. I'm not sure this is the right occasion to say so, because it's dramatic. But of course, if you think that such clubs are managed in a way that it's so linked to TV rights, it's about 60% of their total income. It's not only an Italian problem, I know, but as the Italian league is not anymore the leading European league, but maybe we should get this occasion to change things a bit. I mean, if you look at the future, can you still think about buying big players in their 30s? And I mean people like Cristiano Ronaldo, which I love, of course, as a football lover and a Juventus fan. But is this the right dimension for Italian football? I'm not sure about it. Maybe it's time for a kind of managing more like Atalanta. They grow their talents. They work a lot with the players that nobody knows but them. Like Udinese are fantastic. There was a time when Udinese was compared only to Arsenal for the capabilities of Arsene, of course, to look around the world and find the talents of the future. So maybe that's the way to go for a league, for a movement that is not anymore at the top of Europe, but still has a great value.
Yeah, and what can Serie A do as a league and an owner of the operator of the league? What can they do to help clubs?
It's a difficult situation because it's typical in Italy that everybody looks at their own interests, and it's not easy to make to work for the common good. For instance, in this peculiar situation, Lazio, who are currently second in the league with only 1 point behind Juventus, they've been such in top form that they are convinced, they're confident they will win the Scudetto if they restart the league. So they want to restart the league, of course. I understand that. And they maybe will deserve to win the league. But there's bigger interest to look at. I'm not sure the current leaders of Italian football and current leaders at politician level can lead the clubs to the right way. But in my personal view, the league should be called off. The Scudetto should not be assigned. We should follow UEFA indication for the cups next year. But as they say, the current table would qualify the clubs for the Champions League and for the Europa League. A problem would be with relegations. Yeah, of course, if you relegate the bottom two teams, they would try to sort their ways legally, and that is not good for anybody. So I think that for a single season, you could avoid relegations. You could have two clubs coming up from the Serie B, the first two in the league, including Filippo Inzaghi's Benevento, which have been performing in an extraordinary way, and play for the next season with 22 clubs in order to fix the situation and to look at the future under different premises. Even also not to forget that next summer we should have been playing the Euro 2020. That was moved to the next year. So we can't go too far with this season because it has to stop in a way. We have to play the Europa League and the Champions League this summer, I think. And then you have to start a new season in time for the national teams to perform at European level.
Yeah, and just looking forward to potentially the next season, what do you think is going to happen if we don't get a return to football this season? Do you anticipate the next season starting on time, or what are your thoughts on going forward?
Well, that is a problem because, as we say, if we don't restart the league in mid-May, it's difficult to end before it's summertime. I think that it's more important now, also on an economic side, to play the Champions League and the Europa League rather than the Serie A. But if you have to play the three competitions, you really risk to go too far. In a sense, having the Serie A playing during the summer would be good on the social side, because many people here in Italy will not be able to go on holiday this summer for economical reasons, for sanitary reasons, whatever. And that would help social cohesion and to manage things in a good way. But you really have to be quick to end the league. You have to force the players to play under terrible temperatures. If they play with the mask, it would be a nightmare. You will risk their health, which is not acceptable. What would you do if you will find a player testing positive, a coach testing positive, a referee testing positive? That's a huge question that nobody can answer now. In the German league, they already have a lot of players which have been tested positive, and they are going on. I'm not sure that we will be as firm and as confident that things would go the good way, the right way here in Italy also.
Okay. Do you think UEFA should have shown more leadership at the start of this pandemic, at the start of the shutdown? Do you think there was a problem with UEFA not showing enough leadership in directing leagues and clubs as to what to do in the event of this, of us getting to this point and there's still no potential return of football?
Yeah, yes, I think so. And I'm sorry to say that because I also work every now and then with them. And I have to honestly say that the tournaments, depending on UEFA, should have been suspended before. And I remember writing an article the morning after the great performance of Atalanta in the Champions League. Then they won the match in San Siro against Valencia. But I said, okay, fantastic night, but now we have to stop. Because it was clear that the situation was getting out of hand. And a month and a half later, the mayor of Bergamo indicated that very match like an atomic bomb thrown on the people, because it was demonstrated that a lot of people coming from Bergamo were later tested positive, and so were many Spanish fans who came to Italy for the match. That was played in Milan, which was the heart of the pandemic at the moment. And Bergamo, which is the base of Atalanta, was hit even harder. I think you may have seen the videos of the corpse being carried away by the army, which I think was the most touching image of this pandemic so far. And I say so because I haven't seen people in the hospitals, people who have told me it's something that you can't forget. And I mean also people who have been doing emergency services for 20 years now. But in spite of that, yes, I think the UEFA should have been more firm in stopping the tournaments, and should have been, I mean, more effective in the last weeks when the Netherlands and Belgium were talking about stopping their leagues. People at UEFA looked a bit disappointed, but were not very clear in what they were saying. At first, they said you have to finish your own league, otherwise you won't qualify your teams for the cups. Then they were, I mean, convinced, I think, to say that, okay, if you stop now, we will look at your current table and that will be enough, which I think is a question of good and common sense.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Lorenzo. I'm going to leave it there. Nice to hear your comments.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Not a problem. Thank you.